They built temples aligned perfectly with the cosmos, then vanished without a trace. All around the world, silent stone monuments stand like ancient sentinels, guarding secrets thousands of years old. Every discovery raises new questions. Who were the true architects of the pyramids? What became of the builders of Machu Picchu? Were our ancestors truly primitive, or did they hold knowledge we have yet to rediscover? There exists a hidden chapter in human history, an era where myth and reality intertwine. The deeper we dig, the more we realize the past is not gone. It is simply waiting to be heard. Deep within the dense Vindhya forests, where sunlight barely reaches the ground, lies a world seemingly frozen in time. Beneath vast natural rock canopies that curve like an ancient labyrinth stands one of the most remarkable archives of human evolution, the Pembeka rock shelters. More than 750 shelters stretch across ancient hills, forming what can only be described as a prehistoric city. This was no temporary camp, early humans lived here continuously for over 300,000 years. Yet what turns Pembeka into a global enigma is not just its age or scale. It is the paintings, vibrant images that have somehow preserved their colors for tens of thousands of years, as if protected by an invisible hand against rain, erosion, and even time itself. These unfading pigments do more than challenge science. They revive a haunting question. Did prehistoric humans know something we still do not understand? What protects these ancient colors, nature, lost knowledge, or something else entirely? Stepping into these shelters feels like entering a silent chronicle of vanished worlds. Every curve, every pigment, every fingerprint on the rock carries a message from people who lived through the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Chalcolithic, Iron Age, and historical periods. Very few places on Earth preserve such a continuous story of humanity. Pembeka was not merely a dwelling. It was a cultural heartland, a place where communities hunted, gathered, performed rituals, painted, recorded memories, and expressed their beliefs about the world. Its art is astonishing. Across the rock faces are vivid scenes. Hunters chasing antelope across open plains. Warriors marching with bows and spears. Ritual dances encircling fires. Daily life captured with striking simplicity. Many animals depicted, like ancient bison, giant deer, and the prehistoric horse Equus pneumaticus, are now extinct. More perplexing are the creatures that match no known species, hinting that early humans may have witnessed forms of life lost entirely to modern science. But nothing baffles researchers more than the pigments themselves. In an environment where rock crumbles, moss grows, dust settles, and winds erode everything, many paintings remain bright and crisp, as though painted only years ago. Yet panels just steps away show heavy fading or complete loss. Geochemical studies show the artists used common minerals, hematite, kaolin, and manganese oxide, materials incapable on their own of lasting so long. The missing ingredient is the mystery. What binder did they use? Was it a tree resin transformed over millennia into a protective film? A rare organic compound? Or a unique chemical reaction that modern laboratories still cannot reproduce? Some scholars suspect prehistoric people created a biological binder that formed an ultra-resistant coating. Others think the pigments bonded with minerals in the stone through a rare geological process. But if nature alone is responsible, why does the preservation vary so dramatically within the same shelter? This suggests something deeper, that different eras, different artists, and different techniques may have been at play. Paleolithic painters might have used basic mixtures, while Mesolithic artists, known for their refinement, could have discovered a superior, long-lasting formula. It is this interplay of environmental factors, human innovation, and sheer chance that makes Pembeka's pigments so mysterious, and so captivating. Yet one truth remains. The art of Pembeka proves the extraordinary intellect and creativity of prehistoric humans. These paintings were not decoration. They were communication, stories, memories, beliefs, meant to endure. And perhaps the unfading pigments were the artist's deliberate gift to the future. A message across time, still speaking to us. The mystery of Pembeka's unfading pigments is only the beginning. As researchers explore deeper into its stone corridors, they find paintings rich with spiritual symbolism. Many shelters depict human figures with animal heads or hybrid forms, standing in ritual poses as if caught mid-ceremony. Archaeologists often interpret these as shamans, intermediaries between the physical world and the unseen realm. But some scholars propose a more radical view, that these are not humans at all, but deities or mythic beings revered by prehistoric communities. Their presence suggests that Pembeka was not just a settlement, it was a sacred landscape where belief, fear, imagination, and ritual shaped every stroke of paint. One of the most famous images is the boar rock painting, showing a massive wild boar looming over a human figure. Was this the representation of an actual now extinct species? Or a towering symbol of strength, protection, and divine guardianship? No consensus exists. As researchers probed further, they realized Pembeka preserved far more than scenes of daily life. The walls also contain an intricate system of abstract symbols, concentric circles, spirals, repeated hatch marks, and motifs resembling proto-writing. Their meanings are undeciphered, yet they appear with striking consistency. Even more astonishing is that many of these symbols resemble markings found in caves across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. These regions had no known contact during the periods in question. The uncanny similarity raises a bold question. Could prehistoric humanity have shared a universal symbolic language long before formal writing emerged? Among all debates surrounding Pembeka, the most controversial mystery is this. Who created the oldest layer of paintings? Some Paleolithic artworks here do not match known styles of early Homo sapiens in South Asia. Certain lines are oddly simplified, other compositions show deliberate abstraction and sophisticated structure. This inconsistency has led to a provocative hypothesis. Could the earliest paintings have been made not by Homo sapiens, but by Homo erectus or even earlier human species? If true, it would overturn our entire understanding of prehistoric cognition and creativity. Yet despite these unanswered questions, one truth remains: the red, white, and black pigments endure, defying time, logic, and erosion, reminding us that ancient minds may have been far more advanced than we ever imagined. Deep within the lonely hills of Madhya Pradesh lies another place that challenges everything we know, Udayagiri, a stone sanctuary where the Gupta kings carved their power directly into the earth. Unlike bustling capitals or grand temple cities, Udayagiri was remote, isolated, and chosen with eerie precision. Here, shadows, sunlight, astronomy, and sacred geometry converge into a single intentional design. At the center of this enigmatic site stands a masterpiece so impossibly precise that modern scholars still struggle to explain it. The colossal Vishnu Varha relief. Carved not merely into a cliff face, but into the very boundary between myth and history, this sculpture challenges our assumptions about ancient craftsmanship. It depicts Vishnu in his boar form lifting the earth from primordial waters, yet the artistry is breathtaking. The stone surface is unnaturally smooth, the musculature perfectly contoured, the facial details refined far beyond what 5th-century tools should have allowed. This has sparked one of the greatest debates of Gupta art. Did the artisans of Udayagiri possess a lost carving or polishing technique unknown to modern researchers? The site's purpose is equally mysterious. Despite controlling thriving cities and major temple networks, the Gupta rulers chose this isolated ridge as a ceremonial center. No surviving text explains why. Scholars have proposed several theories. A sacred energy convergence point. A site aligned with specific solar events. A location for secret royal rituals performed only by the Gupta elite. None are proven. The decision remains one of the Gupta Empire's most enduring enigmas. The Varha relief itself deepens the mystery. The incisions are deep yet astonishingly smooth. The contours display flawless control over carving force, as though the stone yielded like clay. The posture is dynamic, almost lifelike. Varha appears to step out of the rock. Most baffling is the tiny earth carved on the tusk with micro-level precision impossible to replicate using the standard iron chisels of that era. Some stone specialists claim the surface shows signs of a smoothing technique completely unknown today. Others believe that Gupta craftsmen may have possessed a rare iron alloy, far harder than any recorded in ancient texts, capable of cutting sandstone with improbable finesse. The unusual grind patterns on the relief do not match any known carving method from antiquity. This has sparked speculation that a now-lost technological or artistic tradition once existed, one the Gupta artisans mastered, but history forgot. Some researchers speculate that the glassy smoothness of the Varha relief may have been achieved through polishing, abrasion, or stone finishing methods that have since disappeared, techniques as lost to time as the debated construction methods of the Egyptian pyramids or the precision stonework of Puma Punku. Though no theory has been proven, the Varha carving remains too smooth, too precise, too technically refined for the tools historians believe existed in the 5th century. Its perfection forces scholars to consider the possibility that Gupta artisans possess technologies or techniques that modern researchers no longer understand. Yet the Varha relief is far more than a technical masterpiece, its spiritual significance is profound. The sculpture symbolizes cosmic renewal and divine power, themes deeply woven into Gupta royal ideology. Ancient sources hint at a mysterious Udayagiri victory ritual. The king would enter the cave complex as though descending into the chaotic underworld, then emerge reborn under Vishnu's protection. But no surviving text describes the ceremony in full, who performed it, what rites were enacted, or why it could only take place before this specific relief. Its very purpose remains one of the great religious enigmas of ancient India. Beyond its spiritual depth, Udayagiri astonishes researchers with tantalizing evidence that it may have functioned as an ancient astronomical site. Many cave entrances align perfectly with sunrise positions on solstices and equinoxes, alignments far too exact to be accidental. Certain chambers admit sunlight only on specific days of the year, illuminating a single sacred symbol for mere moments. In Cave 6, a ritual light slit directs a beam of sunlight onto an altar at the precise moment the sun reaches its zenith, a phenomenon that feels more like a divine signal than architectural coincidence. These features suggest Udayagiri may have operated as a solar observatory deeply intertwined with royal ritual, yet without written confirmation, this theory remains fiercely debated. Scattered throughout the site are small Brahmi inscriptions created by different groups across various periods. While some may be simple pilgrim markings, others contain symbols so unfamiliar that they resist all attempts at interpretation. Some resemble astronomical indicators, others resemble no known religious, cultural, or mathematical tradition of the Gupta age. Their presence adds yet another layer of complexity to Udayagiri's already confounding character. One of the most puzzling mysteries is the presence of numerous unfinished reliefs, frozen at the sketching stage, abandoned without any sign of disaster or deliberate destruction. The interruption appears to have come abruptly from within. Did political upheaval halt the sacred work? Did shifting religious priorities render the rituals obsolete? Or was a royal ceremony once performed here simply discontinued, causing the entire complex to fade into obscurity? With no surviving records, the abandonment remains a silent riddle. Local legends whisper of a hidden underground tunnel connecting the caves to a deeper, more secret shrine. Modern surveys have detected blocked artificial fissures, but definitive evidence remains elusive. If such a tunnel existed, it may have played a role in royal rites, or served as a symbolic passage between the human world and the cosmic realm. All these elements, astonishing craftsmanship, mysterious techniques, precise solar alignments, undeciphered symbols, and lost rituals, make Udayagiri one of India's most compelling archaeological enigmas. At its heart stands the Varha sculpture, a stone monument that challenges modern archaeology and hints at forgotten knowledge. It reminds us that human history holds techniques, ideas, and traditions that vanished long before we had the chance to understand them. Deep in the pitch-black tunnels of the Andes, where icy winds whisper through ancient cracks, lies a sacred object seen by only a handful of people in the modern world. At the core of the Chavan de Huantar temple, hidden within a maze of cold, silent corridors, stands a massive monolithic pillar. Modern scholars call it the Chavan Lanzan, yet it resembles no obelisk known to human history. Nearly 3 meters tall and confined inside a claustrophobic chamber, the Lanzan feels like the pulsing heart of the entire complex. What shocks archaeologists most is this. The temple appears to have been built around the pillar itself, as though it served as a cosmic axis, a point of contact between humanity and a power far beyond ordinary perception. What do you think the Lanzan truly represents, a deity, a ritual instrument, or something even more mysterious? When ancient pilgrims entered Chavin's lightless tunnels, where shadows devoured every spark of illumination, they had to navigate blindly for hours. The sound of conch shell trumpets, played by priests in distant chambers, echoed and warped through the corridors, transforming into deep, otherworldly vibrations like the voice of a hidden entity. Exhausted and disoriented, pilgrims suddenly found themselves face to face with the Lanzan. A towering hybrid deity with sharp fangs, wide hypnotic eyes, and hair carved into writhing serpents. In the dense, suffocating air, many believed they were encountering a living god. Scholars now think Chavin priests engineered this experience deliberately, using acoustics, geometry, and psychological manipulation with extraordinary sophistication. The carvings on the Lanzan are not mere decoration. They form an elaborate system of interconnected symbols, almost like a secret pictographic script understood only by the priestly elite. As pilgrims circled the pillar, the image appeared to shift, the eyes widening, the mouth twisting, the lines bending, creating the illusion of movement. While modern researchers identify this as an optical effect, the level of artistic control achieved by a society without a written language remains astonishing. The Chavin priests used San Pedro cactus, a potent hallucinogenic plant, as a central element in their rituals. Before entering the dark, echoing corridors of the temple, pilgrims underwent strict purification, fasting, bathing in icy water, and following the precise instructions of the priesthood. As the hallucinogen took hold, their hearts pounded, their breath grew heavy, and under the flickering torchlight, the carvings on the Lanzan began to ripple. Shapes seemed to twist and breathe. Eyes appeared to blink. The deity carved in stone felt alive, watching them, judging them. Within this orchestrated fusion of darkness, sound, and altered perception, pilgrims became convinced they were standing before a living supernatural being. To the Chavin, the Lanzan was no lifeless pillar. It was a portal, a doorway to the divine realm, a silent witness to the fears, vows, and visions of humanity. One of the most astonishing features of the Lanzan is its placement. It stands at the precise intersection of 3 major sectors of the temple, aligned with a level of architectural precision almost unbelievable for such an ancient civilization. These 3 directions represented the upper world, the realm of gods, the middle world, the realm of humans, and the underworld, the domain of spirits and ancestors. The Lanzan, shaped like a massive spear driven deep into the earth, symbolically pierces all 3 layers of existence. This symbolism is why later Spanish chroniclers called it the Lanzan, the spear. In early Andean cosmology, the concept of a world axis, an axis mundi linking heaven and earth, appeared very early, and the Lanzan embodies all of it. This has led many archaeologists to believe that it was not only the architectural center of Chavin but the spiritual convergence point of the entire civilization. Yet despite the sophistication of these interpretations, they remain only hypotheses. With no written language, the Chavin left behind no explanation for the Lanzan's true purpose. Was it a deity? A tool for inducing visions? A symbol of authority? A cosmic map? Or something completely beyond the categories of modern religion? What makes the Lanzan one of the most enigmatic artifacts in South America is precisely this lack of definitive meaning. Researchers have scrutinized every line and curve carved into the stone, yet no one can explain why the Chavin engineered an object so dependent on optical illusion, placed it deep in total darkness, or built an entire ceremonial city around it. This absence of clear clues raises a profound possibility. Perhaps everything we are trying to interpret is merely a projection of modern thinking onto an ancient worldview we barely understand. Was the Lanzan truly meant to represent a god? Or does it belong to a symbolic system where divinity, art, hallucination, ritual, and consciousness blended together in ways our modern categories cannot capture? It may be that the Lanzan was neither deity nor axis nor map, but instead a symbolic language of the ancient mind, a form of expression no modern system can fully decode. And for this reason, 3 millennia after its creation, the Lanzan of Chavin remains an unsolved mystery. It stands alone in the darkness, a monument to a worldview far more complex, more foreign, and more sophisticated than our own. Until a definitive clue emerges, a discovery archaeologists admit may never come, the Lanzan will continue to silently challenge every interpretation we attempt to impose upon it. Across the vast deserts of Peru, where scorching winds race over endless dunes, lies another perplexing wonder, Chan Chan. This city is a paradox. It was built not from stone or metal, but from mud, yet it has survived for centuries, outlasting storms, earthquakes, and the harsh climate that has obliterated countless other structures. From above, Chan Chan appears as an immense labyrinth of towering adobe walls, their surfaces carved with waves, fish, and seabirds, like the memory of an ancient ocean preserved under the desert sun. But what astonishes archaeologists most is not its beauty or scale. It is the secret hidden within its foundations. How did the Chimu, without iron tools, cement, or preserved technical records, build a mud city more durable than many stone monuments around the world? No one has fully solved this puzzle. The difficulty lies in the material itself. Adobe, made from mud, sand, water, and organic fibers, is notoriously vulnerable. A single heavy rainy season can destroy similar structures elsewhere. Yet the walls of Chan Chan, some rising 6 to 12 meters, have endured for centuries. The Chimu appear to have mastered the art of transforming mud into a load-bearing material. They compressed adobe in successive layers, cured it under the desert sun, and constructed their walls in zigzag formations that spread wind pressure instead of absorbing it. This prevented collapse from coastal gusts, problems that straight walls typically suffer. The thick, massive structure of each wall absorbed vibration and dispersed stress, creating a paradoxical architecture. Fragile materials forming an almost indestructible city. Chan Chan stands today as a testament to knowledge that should not have been possible for its time. Stepping inside the walls of Chan Chan feels like entering another world. Sharks, seabirds, schools of fish, reed boats, and swirling geometric motifs flow across the towering adobe surfaces. As sunlight shifts throughout the day, these carved patterns seem to move, turning the city into a fossilized ocean where ancient currents and forgotten sea creatures drift beneath layers of hardened mud. Archaeologist Mary Glowacki once described wandering its corridors as walking inside the ocean itself, where the walls whisper stories shaped by waves long gone. But Chan Chan was more than beautiful, it was a political engine. The city consists of multiple monumental compounds, each containing palaces, ceremonial courtyards, storage halls, and burial chambers. Its layout is so complex that even today, researchers cannot say with certainty what every structure was used for. One leading theory proposes that each Chimu ruler built a vast palace during his reign. After his death, the complex was sealed forever, becoming a spiritual residence, never reused, never reformed. This, one king, one palace, pattern explains the many colossal compounds that appear untouched across the site. Chan Chan's hydraulic system deepens the mystery. Beneath the walkways lies a hidden network of reservoirs and underground canals more advanced than once believed possible. The large rectangular pools at the centers of royal compounds were originally thought to be agricultural, but new evidence points to ritual use, purification ceremonies, astronomical reflection pools, or symbolic portals to the marine world that shaped Chimu cosmology. The underground channels reveal engineering far beyond the assumptions once made about Adobe-era civilizations. Another perplexing feature, despite rising from an arid desert, the city's entire visual language revolves around the sea. For the Chimu, the ocean was not just an economic lifeline, it was the core of their religion. Many scholars believe Chan Chan was intentionally designed as a terrestrial mirror of the divine underwater realm. Its walls echo waves, its corridors pulse like flowing currents. But was this symbolism purely artistic, or did it serve a deeper ritual role? Without any surviving Chimu texts, we are left with only speculation. The greatest mystery of all is the same question that has puzzled archaeologists for generations. How did the Chimu build a mud city that has endured for centuries? Many theories have been proposed, yet none fully explain its resilience. A lost binding agent? Some suggest plant resins, mineral salts, or organic chemicals were mixed into the adobe. But chemical analyses reveal nothing out of the ordinary. Layered construction. Another theory argues the adobe was built in alternating densities, allowing it to flex with temperature shifts and resist erosion, a technique far ahead of its time. Aerodynamic architecture. The zigzag walls appear to disperse wind pressure with remarkable efficiency, preventing collapse even during intense coastal storms. Geographic protection. Natural sand ridges create a microclimate that shields the city from rainfall, though this does not explain why nearby adobe sites decayed far more quickly. Continuous maintenance. Some propose that the Chimu meticulously reinforced the walls every year, but maintaining such a massive complex would have required an extraordinary labor system, one for which no direct evidence survives. Despite these hypotheses, none fully account for the astonishing durability of Chan Chan. The walls are simply too tall, too thick, too perfectly engineered to be explained by conventional adobe construction. Some archaeologists call it the immortal mud city, a structure that has outlasted countless stone monuments across the world. And even with modern materials science and controlled experiments, we still cannot recreate adobe with comparable resilience. This inability of present-day science to replicate ancient methods only deepens the enigma of Chan Chan. It suggests that past civilizations held knowledge, engineering, environmental understanding, or material mastery, that has since slipped into oblivion. Chan Chan may have been abandoned after the Inca conquest or disrupted by catastrophic El Niño events, but its walls remain. Enduring. Silent. Guarding secrets that refuse to reveal themselves. High on the wind-polished plateaus of Cusco stands another cryptic marvel, the Kenko Labyrinth. It feels less like a ruin and more like an entryway into an erased ritual world of the Inca. Kenko does not resemble a temple, fortress, palace, or any known architectural tradition. It is a single colossal rock carved into twisting tunnels, dark chambers, ritual altars, and passages that coil as if alive. Its ancient Quechua name, Kinku, meaning to twist or to coil, captures its essence perfectly. What unsettles archaeologists is not the shape itself, but the purpose. After decades of study, no consensus exists. Kenko feels like the remnants of a ceremony the Inca intentionally abandoned, yet also stripped of every clue that could explain it. What do you think the Inca concealed in the shadowed corridors of Kenko? Stepping onto its surface, visitors are struck not only by the immense size of the carved stone, but by the intricate network of channels etched into it with astonishing precision. These grooves twist, curve, and cut through the rock with deliberate intention, as if engineered for a specific ritual, one whose meaning has been lost to time. Some archaeologists believe the carved channels at Kenko once carried chicha beer for purification rites. Others argue they may have been designed to transport water, or even blood during sacrificial ceremonies. But many of these grooves are so narrow that they could not have carried thick liquids, casting doubt on the sacrificial drain hypothesis. Recent studies propose that the channels may be symbolic rather than functional, representing the flow of life, mapping mythic pathways, or even tracing the trajectory of sunlight on sacred days. Yet each explanation solves only a small piece of the puzzle. None fully satisfy the scientific community. Descending into Kenko's underground chamber, the first sensation is the overwhelming density of darkness, heavy, suffocating, absolute. At the heart of this shadow stands a large stone altar polished to an almost impossible smoothness, far exceeding the technical standards typically seen in Inca construction. Its beveled edges and flawless curves have led many scholars to believe this chamber once hosted an extraordinarily significant ritual, perhaps even one so unsettling that the Inca deliberately avoided recording it. Some ancient accounts mention royal mummification rites that may have taken place around this altar. Others suggest it was used to prepare bodies before sacred burial ceremonies. Additional theories propose animal sacrifices, or, in rare cases, human sacrifice. But no archaeological evidence is conclusive. The underground altar of Kenko remains one of the most debated and enigmatic structures in Andean archaeology. The labyrinthine tunnels that coil beneath Kenko are equally baffling. These dark, disorienting corridors seem intentionally engineered to confuse anyone who walks through them. In Inca cosmology, darkness symbolized a return to the womb of Pachamama, Mother Earth. Because of this, some scholars believe traversing these tunnels represented a symbolic death and rebirth, an initiatory descent into the underworld followed by spiritual emergence into the light. Kenko may have functioned as a liminal space where the Inca performed rituals of transformation, initiation, or passage between realms. Faint carvings still cling to the stone surfaces, a puma, a serpent, a condor, and several divine faces. These symbols, representing the Inca's three realms of existence, the condor, sky, the puma, earth, and the serpent, underworld, suggest that Kenko may have been a ritual theater, where the cosmic journey was reenacted through the interplay of shadow, movement, and carved imagery. Although compelling, this idea remains speculative. One of the most persistent debates involves the possibility that Kenko once served as a ceremonial observatory. Certain channels and carved faces appear to align with the sun during solstices and equinoxes, raising the idea that beams of sunlight penetrating the labyrinth may have created sacred, dramatic moments during rituals. Yet unlike the precision of Machu Picchu's Intihuatana stone, Kenko's alignments are imperfect, leaving scholars uncertain whether they reflect intention or coincidence. Still, the entire architecture of Kenko revolves around contrast, light and darkness, visibility and mystery, two forces deeply revered in Inca cosmology. So the idea of sunlight being used as a ritual catalyst remains hard to dismiss. All of Kenko's strange features ultimately converge on a single question. What kind of ritual took place in the deep darkness beneath this stone labyrinth? The polished altar, the twisting tunnels, the echoed silence, they all evoke Oku Pasha, the Inca underworld. Some scholars believe the site hosted death rituals, guiding the souls of the departed toward their ancestors. Others propose that Kenko was a center of Pachamama rites, where initiates descended into pure darkness before emerging symbolically reborn. There are theories of royal initiation ceremonies, requiring rulers to undergo a symbolic journey before being recognized. And some Andean specialists argue Kenko was a spiritual communication chamber, similar to the ancient cave sanctuaries scattered across the Andes. But none of these theories explains everything. Each illuminates only a fragment of the whole. In truth, no surviving Inca text mentions Kenko or its purpose. The site exists in a historical void. Archaeologists must rely on the grooves in the stone, the scattered carvings, the tunnel architecture, and the oppressive darkness so complete that many believe it was the dominant ritual component of the entire structure. The shadows of Kenko are not mere absence of light, they are the absence of explanation. The Inca crafted this labyrinth with such precision, secrecy, and intention that they left no clues. Only stone mysteries remain. And within this darkness lies the ultimate question. What did the Inca do in this place they carved with such devotion and such deliberate silence? Until a groundbreaking discovery emerges, something archaeologists agree may never happen, the Kenko labyrinth will remain one of the strangest and most unsettling ritual landscapes of the Inca world, a masterpiece of stone engineering, left behind without a single word of explanation. Far from the Andes, in the ancient land of Manasai in Georgia, another puzzle reshaped our understanding of human evolution. Beneath layers of ancient sediment, archaeologists uncovered one of the most controversial fossil collections ever found, 5 skulls, each dramatically different in shape, yet lying side by side, each dating to about 1.8 million years ago. These skulls overturned everything we believed about the timing of humanity's earliest migrations out of Africa and ignited one of the fiercest debates in anthropology. Were the Manasai hominins an exceptionally early form of Homo erectus? Or do they represent a completely distinct species, an unknown branch of humanity with no official name in our evolutionary tree? Even today, the scientific community remains sharply divided. In your opinion, were the Dmanisi hominins the earliest Homo erectus, or a lost human species forgotten by time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What stunned researchers at Dmanisi was not just the age of the fossils, though 1.8 million years makes them the oldest human evidence outside Africa, but the extraordinary diversity among the skulls. Had these remains been unearthed thousands of kilometers apart, scientists would almost certainly have classified them as belonging to entirely different species, one resembling Homo habilis, another echoing Homo rudolfensis, and several showing classic Homo erectus traits. And yet they all came from the same small community, buried in the same geological layer, from the same moment in time. This forced anthropologists to confront a difficult possibility. Perhaps the way we divide early human species is deeply flawed. What we once labeled as separate species may have simply been natural variation within a single, diverse population. Among these discoveries, Skull 5, known as D4500, stands as the most astonishing. It is the most complete ancient human skull ever found. But its features defy all expectations. It combines a large, projecting face, massive jaws, robust teeth, an unusually small brain case. The brain volume is only 546 cubic centimeters, nearly identical to Homo habilis, yet the facial and dental structure appear much more advanced. This paradox makes Skull 5 a true evolutionary riddle, a combination of traits that should not exist together, at least not according to traditional models of human evolution. The closer scientists study it, the more it reshapes the central mystery of Dmanisi. Who exactly were these ancient humans? Hypothesis 1, early, highly variable Homo erectus. One theory proposes that the Dmanisi hominins were a very early form of Homo erectus, one that displayed far greater anatomical variation than any later population. Under this view, the dramatic differences in brain size, cranial shape, and facial structure are simply variations within a large, widely spread species. But there's a problem. Even compared with the tremendous diversity found in modern humans, the range of differences among the Dmanisi skulls is unusually wide. If all of these individuals are Homo erectus, then our current species categories become blurred, perhaps even meaningless. Hypothesis 2, a wandering Homo habilis. Another hypothesis argues that the Dmanisi individuals were closer to Homo habilis, a species with small brains and simple Oldowan stone tools. If this is true, then the entire timeline of early human migration must be rewritten. Homo habilis was long believed to be confined to East Africa, with no evidence for long-distance movement. Yet the stone tools found at Dmanisi are unmistakably Oldowan, the same type associated with Homo habilis. This raises an astonishing question. Could Homo habilis have left Africa far earlier than anyone imagined? If so, Homo erectus might not have been the first explorer after all. Hypothesis 3, a completely new species. The boldest theory proposes that the Dmanisi hominins do not fit within H. habilis, H. rudolfensis, or H. erectus, but instead represent an entirely new species, a lost human branch sometimes informally called Homo georgicus. The key evidence comes again from Skull 5. Its large face and strong jaws paired with a tiny brain have never appeared together in any known human species. And Skull 5 is not an outlier. 3 of the 5 skulls show traits that defy categorization. When the anatomical data from all 5 skulls is combined, the Dmanisi population forms a pattern wholly different from any known Homo lineage. They may represent a transitional branch, somewhere between Homo habilis and Homo erectus, that survived briefly before vanishing without a trace. A paradox in behavior. The mystery deepens when considering the lifestyle of the Dmanisi humans. They used extremely simple Oldowan tools, possessed small brains, migrated thousands of kilometers, and survived the cold climate of the Caucasus. Traditional evolutionary models suggest that long-distance migration required large brains and advanced technology. The Dmanisi people break this rule completely. Even more remarkable is the discovery of an elderly individual who had lost all teeth yet lived years afterward, evidence that the community cared for its vulnerable members. Such social compassion was long believed to emerge much later in human evolution. This suggests a provocative possibility. Their minds may not have been fully developed, but their social behavior was far ahead of its time. A species that fits nowhere. Attempts to classify the Dmanisi skulls fail at every turn. Too advanced for Homo habilis. Too small-brained, and too variable, for Homo erectus. Too mismatched for Homo rudolfensis. This fits nowhere pattern has fueled debate for decades. And so, the ultimate question remains unsolved. Were the Dmanisi hominins the earliest Homo erectus? An unusual population of Homo habilis? Or a completely new species that vanished without descendants? No explanation has yet achieved universal acceptance. This profound ambiguity is precisely what makes the Dmanisi skulls one of modern anthropology's greatest enigmas, a puzzle that may continue challenging our understanding of human origins for decades to come. For modern visitors, the Tlingit petroglyphs may look like simple decorative scratches on ancient stone. But to archaeologists, anthropologists, and Tlingit elders, they are something far more profound, an undeciphered archive, a forgotten language carved into coastal rock, perhaps the key to an ancient spiritual worldview that has almost entirely vanished. What do you think? Were these petroglyphs ritual symbols, territorial markers, or messages to the spirits? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Unlike many ancient carving traditions around the world, supported by myths, rituals, or surviving texts, the Tlingit petroglyphs exist inside a historical void. There are no scrolls, no ceremonial songs, no epic oral accounts explaining who carved them or why. Even today's Tlingit elders can only speculate, relying on fragments of ancestral memory preserved through generations. Their silence turns the carvings into an unreadable prehistoric library, a language whose dictionary has been erased by time. More than 500 petroglyphs have been discovered so far, and astonishingly, almost no two are alike. Some depict faces with exaggerated, oversized eyes, others show hybrid human-animal beings as though pulled from a forgotten legend. Spirals, concentric circles, strange geometric shapes, symbols that match no known artistic system in North America, appear alongside them. Their diversity suggests they were not created by a single generation or culture, but by many over centuries, each carving a piece of memory into the stone. Together, they form a multi-layered mosaic of meaning that modern science still struggles to decode. The placement of the petroglyphs is one of the most puzzling aspects. Some lie far above the current tide line, untouched by seawater for centuries. Others rest at the very edge of the waves, visible only during the brief hours when the sea retreats. This contrast raises difficult questions. Was the ancient sea level drastically different? Have geological shifts lifted or lowered the coastline? Or did the Tlingit intentionally choose each location according to the rhythms of the ocean, carving stones during rare moments when the tide allowed? If so, these carvings might once have been ritual markers, revealed only to those who understood the language of the tides, secret messages meant to appear and disappear with the sea. Many carvings depict strange beings with non-human proportions, large eyes, curved mouths, elongated bodies that resemble aquatic creatures. Some Tlingit elders believe these represent ancestral figures who came from the sea, a motif scattered across fragmented Tlingit origin stories. But because each clan preserves its own incomplete version, scholars suspect that an entire layer of sacred knowledge has been lost. What remains are only these stone remnants, suspended between myth and memory. It is equally possible that these beings were not mythic spirits at all, but representations of real creatures, mysterious animals once encountered in Alaska's icy waters, animals that inspired awe, fear, or reverence. This ambiguity, balancing myth, ancestry, and natural world, makes the petroglyphs one of North America's most elusive archaeological enigmas. One striking feature is their advanced erosion. Many carvings have faded so deeply into the rock that they are nearly invisible unless sunlight hits them at a precise angle. Their extreme weathering suggests they may be far older than the cultural timeline typically associated with the Tlingit. Some archaeologists believe they might predate Tlingit culture entirely, created by a much earlier, forgotten people. If true, they would be among the few surviving traces of a vanished civilization, stone memories of a people known only through lines carved into rock. The purpose of the Tlingit petroglyphs has been debated for generations. Spiritual gateways. Some elders believe the carvings were sacred portals, places where individuals communicated with ancestors, sea deities, or powerful spirits. Spirals might symbolize energy flows, transitions between worlds, or altered states of consciousness reached through ancient rites. Territorial markers or maps. Some researchers argue the carvings may have identified clan boundaries, whale migration routes, or fishing grounds. Yet this theory struggles to explain why many figures are strangely proportioned, mythic, or placed at tide-dependent locations. Offerings to the sea. Another idea proposes that they were symbolic gifts to the ocean spirits, messages carved into stone as tribute to the forces that govern the Tlingit world. Knowledge storage. Some scholars believe they may represent a form of information storage, a prehistoric library documenting tidal cycles, seasonal patterns, or maritime knowledge. But as oral traditions fragmented over time, the meanings behind these symbols vanished. Every theory feels compelling, yet none can silence the core mystery. No matter how persuasive the ideas, the stones remain silent. And it is this silence that gives the Tlingit petroglyphs their enduring power. They defy interpretation, resisting every modern attempt to impose meaning. They may have been made for gods, for the sea, for ancestors, or for purposes entirely beyond our understanding. Or, as some believe, they were never intended for outsiders at all, messages carved by an ancient world for itself, not for the future. Today, the carvings remain where they have always been, quiet, enduring, staring out at the roaring waves. Holding secrets that may never be recovered. Messages from a world that vanished. A world only the ancestors of the Tlingit could truly comprehend. As the icy waves crash against the ancient stone shores of Alaska, one truth becomes clear: the Tlingit petroglyphs are not the only mystery hiding in the wilderness of the north. In the shadow of towering spruce forests and snow-capped mountain ranges, deeper secrets linger, secrets that stretch far beyond carved symbols and fading legends. Across the Pacific Northwest, from the misty fjords of Alaska to the rugged cliffs of British Columbia, lies a vast corridor of ancient human presence. Here, indigenous cultures preserved their histories not in books or stone monuments, but through an intricate tapestry of oral stories, carved art, and sacred geography. Many of these traditions point to a time long before written history, a time when humans lived in closer dialogue with nature, spirits, and the invisible worlds believed to intertwine with our own. And at the heart of these myths stands a recurring theme: the sea was not merely water, it was a living consciousness. A being. A realm. A teacher. A destroyer. This worldview adds yet another layer to the mystery of the petroglyphs. Perhaps the old carvers weren't documenting myths, they were speaking to something that watched from below the waves. The lost mariners of the north. Some anthropologists speculate that the Tlingit petroglyphs may reflect a forgotten maritime tradition, one belonging to seafaring groups who navigated the Alaskan coast thousands of years before modern tribes established themselves in the region. Fragments of driftwood boat remains found in submerged ancient shorelines, along with stone tools embedded in now-drowned beaches, suggest that prehistoric peoples lived in areas long claimed by the sea. Rising water levels at the end of the last ice age consumed vast stretches of coastline, erasing entire settlements and cultures. If the petroglyphs predate the Tlingit, then they may be the only surviving evidence of these vanished mariners. Their symbols, spirals, concentric rings, elongated marine beings, may not be decorative at all, but the last fragments of a communication system born from a culture swallowed by the ocean. Some researchers believe these coastal carvings could mark seasonal gathering sites where early navigators shared knowledge about tides, storms, and celestial navigation. Without written records, stone became the memory of the sea. The spirit watchers of the coast. Tlingit oral tradition speaks of beings who existed before humans, creatures known as the Yil-Ka or Raven people, who shaped the world, moved through stone, and carved messages in places humans could barely reach. These beings were believed to inhabit the coastline long before the clans arrived. Many elders believe that the petroglyphs could be remnants of these primordial beings, either carved by them or representing them. The large eyes, stretched bodies, and hybrid traits might not be mythic exaggerations but symbolic depictions of forces or creatures encountered by ancient peoples. One elder described these carvings as faces that watched the sea come and go. If true, they may serve as spiritual guardians marking the liminal boundary between land and water, sentinels meant to protect, warn, or guide. Mysterious alignments with celestial events. A growing branch of research explores the possibility that certain petroglyph sites align with celestial bodies or seasonal events. Some carvings face sunrise points during equinoxes, others align with the moon's northernmost rise, an orientation significant in multiple Pacific coastal cultures. If the carvers used these symbols as cosmic markers, they may have functioned as lunar calendars, tidal prediction charts, ritual observatories, seasonal ceremonial sites. But due to erosion, lost context, and the absence of written explanations, these alignments remain difficult to confirm. Still, the possibility invites a profound question. Were the petroglyphs messages to the sky, the sea, or both? The vanished language of stone. Every culture develops symbols to communicate ideas too complex for words. Some represent emotions, others encode knowledge, still others preserve cosmological maps. The Tlingit petroglyphs may be all three. Some spirals could represent whirlpools, dangers to fishermen. Some circles could represent salmon cycles, critical for survival. Some faces could represent clan ancestors, eternal witnesses of time. But because the symbolic system was never standardized, taught across regions, or preserved in oral tradition, it became a broken language over generations. Imagine losing 90% of your alphabet. Imagine reading poetry with half the words missing. Imagine trying to understand a map after all the landmarks have disappeared. This is what researchers face with the petroglyphs. Echoes of a pre-tsunami memory. One of the most controversial theories suggests that the petroglyphs may depict memories of a catastrophic event, large waves, strange creatures, and beings emerging from the sea. This theory draws parallels with Indonesian, Japanese, and Polynesian carvings that appear after major tsunamis. Some carvings show panicked figures next to spirals and wave patterns. Others resemble monstrous sea creatures or distorted humanoids. Perhaps these represent traumatic memories, the way ancient people processed a natural disaster through symbolism. This idea remains speculative but intriguing, especially since Alaskan coastal communities have experienced powerful megathrust earthquakes and tsunamis for millennia. The silence of stone and sea. Despite countless theories, the petroglyphs refuse to reveal their secrets. Some scholars argue that the carvings weren't meant to be understood by outsiders, or even by later generations. They may have been encoded messages, ritual signatures, spiritual anchors, or ceremonial expressions meant only for the carvers themselves. Others believe the symbols were meant to speak not to humans, but to the ocean itself, an offering to the spirits who controlled fishing, tides, and storms. In many indigenous cultures, the boundary between written symbol and sacred action is blurred. A carving is not merely a picture, it is a call, a contract, a breath of ritual frozen in stone. If so, the petroglyphs are not artwork. They are ritual acts, still active in ways we do not understand. The mystery that endures. And so the Tlingit petroglyphs remain as they have for centuries. Silent. Untouched. Staring across the cold Pacific as waves rise and fall. They guard their meanings with the same patience the sea holds its tides. Archaeologists, elders, linguists, and explorers all stand before them with theories, territorial markers, mythic depictions, navigational charts, spiritual offerings, ancestral memories, but none can break the silence. Perhaps they were never meant for us. Perhaps they were carved for gods, spirits, or ancestors. Or perhaps, as some Tlingit elders quietly say, they were carved so that time would never forget the people who once stood here. But until a discovery emerges, a new clue, an intact oral tradition, or an archaeological breakthrough, the petroglyphs will remain one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries of the North. A message from a vanished world. A language written in stone. A memory carved where land meets sea, whispering to those willing to listen. Beneath the cold sky where the Pacific crashes endlessly against the rocks, the story of the Tlingit petroglyphs fades into another northern mystery, one hidden deeper inland, far from the sea's reach. Travel southeast, where the dense Alaskan rainforest gives way to glacier-fed valleys, and you arrive at a place that should not exist at all, a stone landscape carved with such precision, intention, and silent purpose that even seasoned archaeologists hesitate to classify it. They call it Sheikh Slough, though ancient stories suggest it once held a different name, a name spoken only during ceremonies that have been lost for hundreds of years. Here, massive boulders sit in deliberate patterns, etched with channels and grooves that twist like frozen riverbeds. Unlike the coastal petroglyphs, these carvings are not open symbols or mythic faces. They are geometric, crisp, linear, and unerringly precise. Some grooves are wide and deep enough to sink your entire hand into, while others are thin as strands of hair, running perfectly straight for several meters before abruptly curving into spirals or intersecting at flawless right angles. The first glance suggests randomness, but the longer you stare, the more the patterns pull you in, as though they were engineered rather than carved. Local tradition warns visitors never to trace the grooves with their fingers. The old stories claim these lines once guided energy flows, paths used in night rituals performed by the shamans of a vanished people. Elders never elaborate. They simply say, those paths were not made for the living to follow. Whether metaphor or memory, no one knows. Archaeologists tried to study the formations with modern tools, 3D mapping, spectrographic analysis, erosion dating, and the results only deepened the confusion. The grooves are older than the trees, older than the moss-covered forests, older even than some of the retreating glaciers nearby. Their age suggests a culture that lived here long before the ancestors of modern tribes arrived. Yet no artifacts, no tools, no domestic remains exist to identify who carved them. The channels are cut into incredibly hard stone, a metamorphic rock type nearly impossible to carve without advanced tools or hours of relentless effort. But there are no chisel marks, no fractures, no evidence of tool use at all. The lines are too clean, their edges too smooth, as though shaped by heat, pressure, or some method modern researchers cannot replicate. Some propose that the grooves are ancient fishing traps, though they are located far from any water sources. Others suggest they are maps, perhaps recording glacial movement, star positions, or pathways across the mountains. But none of these explanations account for the sheer scale or precision. The channels connect to each other in mathematical patterns, spirals whose radii expand in perfect geometric progression, lines angled in ways that match solstice positions, curves that mirror river pathways dozens of miles away. But if these carvings represent celestial or geographic knowledge, then they reflect a level of technical understanding far beyond what is typically attributed to prehistoric cultures in this region. As researchers debated, the land itself seemed to offer quiet resistance. Instruments malfunctioned in unpredictable ways. Compass needles twitched off course. GPS signals flickered. Some scientists attributed this to magnetic anomalies beneath the bedrock. Others were not so sure. A few spoke privately of a presence, a feeling of being watched, or guided, or carefully assessed by something ancient. Most dismissed the idea, but the sensation lingered among those who stayed long enough. The most baffling element appeared one autumn morning when low sun cut across the grove at an angle unseen during other seasons. Shadows slipped into the grooves, highlighting a pattern that had gone unnoticed. Seen only under this rare light, the channels revealed the form of what looked like a massive creature, part human, part raven, part something beyond either. Wings outstretched, face elongated, limbs intertwined with geometric shapes that seemed neither symbolic nor decorative, but purposeful. A message perhaps, written in code. But one layered so deeply in stone and shadow that only the earth itself remembers what it means. Elders who viewed the discovery grew silent. One finally said, "This is older than our stories." Another refused to approach, claiming the figure depicted a being that walks between worlds, a guardian or witness from an age when humans and spirits still spoke openly. Yet no unified interpretation exists. It was a revelation that raised more questions than answers. As winter returned, the seasonal light disappeared and the creature shape dissolved back into abstraction. Researchers tried to recreate the effect with artificial lighting, but it never appeared the same again. The carving seems designed to be visible only on one specific day of the year, perhaps part of a ritual cycle lost to time. Perhaps a warning. Or perhaps simply an artistic moment meant to be witnessed by a single chosen generation, long gone now. Over time, the site earned a quiet reputation. Rangers noticed visitors speaking in hushed voices even when alone. Animals behaved strangely near the stones, pausing, sniffing the air, sometimes refusing to pass through the grove at all. And while no official record speaks of this, several researchers privately admitted to hearing sounds at the site, slow rhythmic tapping, like stone knocking against stone, though no movement had occurred. In this secluded valley, the carvings remain untouched by explanation. Too precise for folklore, too ancient for local memory, too strange for simple classification. They lie in silence, not abandoned, but waiting. Many believe they once guided rituals, others think they were maps, and some whisper they were messages meant for forces beyond human understanding. But until a definitive discovery emerges, these lines carved deep into the bones of the earth will remain what they have always been, shadows of a forgotten civilization, etched with purpose but stripped of context. The wind still moves through the valley, brushing across the grooves as if reading them. Snow gathers in their channels, melting in long thin lines that shimmer like veins. And as long as the stones remain, they continue to communicate in the only language they know, one written not in words, but in silence, geometry, shadow, and time.